Hi, I'm Joan Newcomb, and today's Mystic Minute is how to view things as consciousness. I talk a lot about this consciousness shift that we're all going through and how your life completely transforms when you change your perspective. And it's not just an intellectual shift, though it can seem like it. And it's a very simple and subtle thing, but I tell you, if you have lived most of your life from the very common perspective that all of us are born into and the world projects, it can just seem like a quantum leap to get there. We're born into the world and people think, oh, we're this cute little baby and we're this blank slate to be taught. We need to learn things. And, our body doesn't know how to roll over when it's born. But we're not acknowledged as the infinite beings that we are. So that's one huge shift, is to realize that you are an infinite being with your own treasure chest of potentiality and your own storehouse of inner wisdom. And there are lots of stories about where that wisdom comes from or what your thread through life is. And so that's a huge shift, just to be able to view the world like that. And then the next step is to realize that, oh wait, I am consciousness, which transcends, the oneness or the unity or anything like that. So it's even more global or universal awareness that I don't just have my storehouse of wisdom, but I am a storehouse of wisdom. And that I exist both within this particular form and in all forms, and not just within this particular time and space, but within all time and space. And I have to say, then that also brings with it its whole bunch of stumbling blocks, because then we can tend to kind of float outside this particular form because we're feeling the all that is, which is great. Life becomes this never-ending rock concert. And that is great, and yet you perceived it through this form within this kind of timeline, and I'll say kind of timeline, because the other thing is when you go through your consciousness shift, time and space becomes malleable. And there's just something about staying connected to, anchored lightly into this form and this story to watch the things unfold. How do you do that if you don't want to go to South America and try ayahuasca? How do you do that if you don't want to go on an LSD trip and change your DNA? Your DNA is changing all the time, but that's just part of the story. How do you gain a clarity of perception? Then how do you maintain your clarity of perception when the world is constantly sending out smoke signals? And I'm going to catch myself in even saying that, because saying that the world is sending this out, sending out lies, smoke signals, things to kind of catch you or draw you back into the illusion, all of that is part of the story. I mean, even that perspective that the world is doing something to you is your body personality. So that's confusing as well, because wait, you've got a body and a personality with this form. Sometimes it feels like multiple personalities because you're perceiving lots of different things on lots of different levels. So for me, the first shift is kind of a mental one. It's like, identifying as consciousness. I am consciousness and I have a physical body. And just feel the shift that creates. When I acknowledge myself as consciousness with a physical body, it also shifts, not just, there's an inner physical shift, but there's also a shift in my physical perception. The world looks more in focus. The world looks brighter and sharper defined. Sometimes it's a real subtle change. I get out of my car, I'm walking through the parking lot to the store, and suddenly I just feel like I'm in a movie set. And to me, that's an affirmation about this reality being a creation of consciousness. Now, I'm not just an actor in the movie set. I'm not like Truman on this show. I am the creator of this, as well as the form is the player in this game. And as consciousness, I'm aware of everything. So it's a perspective shift from I'm just the player in the game to I'm consciousness. And I tell you, when you do that, and you do that on a consistent basis, your life starts to rearrange. And it's very subtle, it's very profound, and then some of the changes in the rearrangements aren't very subtle necessarily, but your response to them doesn't have to be dramatic. Because you know, when you're reacting dramatically, that's when you're engaged in the game. So that's some clues that you know that you're not there yet, or that you have sort of you've gone into the muddy side of the pond, is when you're reacting dramatically, and it's like, oh, this is going on in the news, or that's going on with my family, or da 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 da. That's how your body and your personality experiences it all the time, and that's you kind of sucked into that. And how you regain that perspective, just regain that perspective, helps you remember, oh yeah, this is all a creation of consciousness. And it doesn't invalidate these things are happening to loved ones, this thing is coming up for me, but you don't have to respond as if I'm gonna die, we're all gonna die. You get to respond differently. So for instance, I'm having an experience right now where a relative has dementia and emphysema, and it's bringing up for me this period in my storyline where I helped my mother who had dementia, and then she had lung cancer, and I sheltered in place at her house to help her die at home. And that was a wonderful exercise in continually regaining perspective, because my overarching perspective of what was going on is that I was there to help midwife her back to spirit. And I was able to have that bigger picture of what my role was, while having to navigate health and doctors and hospice and relatives. And so going through something similar where I'm not the primary caretaker in this situation, I'm just reliving some of this, and it's like, oh, bigger picture. The being is creating their own exit strategy, and this is what they are doing to exit, and all of us that are surrounding this person are midwives, doulas, assistants on the physical end of this. And it's a story, it's all a storyline. We're all infinite beings. Person dying is an infinite being. People helping are all infinite beings. And it just becomes a lot easier when you realize your greater perspective of it, because consciousness doesn't feel freaked out by this. Consciousness doesn't die. Consciousness exists regardless of what the physical form is going through. And when you actually go through your consciousness shift, you also realize you can feel the layers of time and space and the multidimensionality of it all. Kind of hard to bring it all into form, but you can get glimmers, awarenesses. And this is where I am within time and space, and this is what's unfolding within time and space. But when you do this, your life goes so much better. It's so less painful. I mean, for me, physical pain will drop off when I shift my perspective, and emotional pain drops off. The times I feel like emotional pain nowadays is when I'm empathically feeling somebody else caught up in their storyline. It's like, oh, this person's suffering from depression and it's really hard for them to do this thing, or this person's got anxiety, and I'm able to define now who these people are, whereas before it was all just one jumble of feelings and collective feelings, and it was not an easy existence. So I offer this to you to shift your perspective, and this is kind of the core message I have in everything I talk about, all these videos I put out, all my blog posts, all the meetups, books, is to have this greater perspective, because it'll totally transform your life, and then by a ripple effect transform your world and the world. The hologram, the story. There will always be kind of drama in the story, because otherwise that'd be kind of a really boring show to watch. But it's a more fun show to have when you maintain your greater perspective. If you like these videos, you can subscribe to them on YouTube. You can also sign up below to get them in your inbox. If you want to know more, my website is joan-newcomb.com. I have a weekly radio show where I talk about all these things. I write a weekly blog where I write about all these things, and I have these weekly videos on YouTube. And I do these meetups weekly throughout the Puget Sound. I do a monthly webinar for people who can't physically attend my meetups. And also, if you want to know more about how to navigate as consciousness, I have a whole toolkit of techniques that you can play with that make navigating this world so much easier and fun. Go to my website, joan-newcomb.com, and look at my coaching programs. So go to joan-newcomb.com, and I'll see you in another couple days with another Mystic Minute.